Hi there, this is Mr. Mitchell again with another social studies video. This is going to be a wrap-up video where we go over some things that we haven't been over yet. Here are the questions. Here's the video. We're going to first go to Germany. Now Germany is going to be this country right here. In Germany, acid rain has been an issue. Of course, it's been an issue in many places, but the particular concern in Germany is the forest. You can see this picture of forest here, and this is whenever I googled acid rain in Germany, this is one of the pictures that came up. So presumably it is part of the trees in Germany that's having trouble. Scientists believe that acid rain harms the waxy outer coating that protects the leaves, letting hazardous gases seep into the leaves. So what that does, it prevents the leaf from taking in carbon dioxide, which is needed to perform photosynthesis, and the plant will eventually die. And presumably it would look like this. So one thing we want to go over here is about how Germany has a forest acid rain concern. But that's not the only thing we want to talk about. There's another area of the world, or another area of Europe, Britain right here, that has a problem with air pollution. Now, it's not the only world problem with air pollution, but here we have a little country with a big population. So air pollution is a problem. Now, what they think is the biggest concern is car exhaust. Activists claim that the British have a considerably shorter life expectancy because of this air pollution. And you can see here some smog that is over Britain. You can see the big famous clock tower, Big Ben, that happens to be right here. And the European Union, you know, Britain and almost all of Europe is in the European Union. They have air pollution controls also, but Britain never seems to make the regulations that the European Union has for them. So they are constantly having to put up with lots and lots of pollution. Another problem in Europe, and this is actually more in Russia, is part of the Ukraine. Here's the Ukraine. Is an accident that happened many years ago. The Chernobyl accident happened in 1986, which for you guys has been a long time ago, because you guys weren't born until 15 years after that, or whatever it turned out to be. But the population of the Ukraine and surrounding areas is still recovering from the Chernobyl nuclear power disaster of 1986. Now, Chernobyl is the name of a city. There was an explosion and a fire at a nuclear reactor. And you can see some of the problems or some of the damage here. We've talked about using nuclear energy before. Nuclear energy is a way to split you split the atom, but it has some real problems if you let some of the radioactivity get out of the controlled source of energy. And that's what happened here whenever you had the explosion and the fire. And it spread throughout much of Western Soviet Union and a lot into Europe. Now, I got this from a site that is more of an activist site, but you can see Chernobyl is here. And you can see the chemical fallout from this accident. You can see didn't have anything way over here, but you apparently have some fairly high readings in a lot of places here, especially this area here and this area here around Chernobyl. Now, here, take a look at this book. There's a book called The Children of Chernobyl, and looks like all of these children have been going through some kind of radiation or chemotherapy where they've lost their hair, and here we have some deformities on these children. Now, Chernobyl and the Ukraine at the time were part of the Soviet Union, the USSR. And the casualty count put out by the secret Soviets was only 31 people. But most people think the number is far, far, far higher, like in the thousands. And that does not take into account the 30 to 60,000 excess cancer deaths that have happened since then. So you have to think that some of those cancer deaths was because of that. And some activist group even claim that the number of casualties has been in the hundreds of thousands. And even though the numbers are disputed, one telling sign is that the town of Chernobyl is completely abandoned now. You do not have anybody that lives there anymore. Let's talk about another aspect of Europe, and this will be kind of Europe in general, are the major religions that are practiced in Europe. The major religions practiced in Europe are Christianity, and here is Jesus on the cross, which is a symbol definitely of Christianity. Judaism, which is a person who is Jewish, often practices Judaism, and here's a six-pointed star, which apparently is has significance in Judaism, and Islam, and you see this symbol, which is a kind of part of Islam. So we have Christianity, and I don't have the tool that can write this out very well, so I will just abbreviate. Judaism and Islam. And sometimes you hear the term Muslim. A person who practices Islam is called a Muslim. Well, anyway, all these major religions of Europe trace their history through a man named Abraham. And for those of you who are Christians, which is the predominant religion around here, you may remember that Abraham had a son named Isaac, and he was in the Old Testament, early in the Old Testament, and that he had a big role in the, and now I finally got it written there, had kind of a big role in that portion of the Old Testament. Amongst Abraham's son, Ishmael's lineage is the strand that Muslims trace, Ishmael, who was a son of Abraham. And Isaac, another son of Abraham, is the lineage that Jews and Christians trace. The Quran is the writing that Muslims read and revere. The Bible, New and Old Testament, is what is read and revered for Christians, and the Bible, just the Old Testament, is what is read and revered in Judaism. Now let's talk about languages of Europe. There are so many languages in Europe. The book, well, actually not the book, but from the research I've done, it says that there are in the ballpark of 200 languages spoken in this one continent. If you take a look at other continents, I don't know that you would come even close to 200 languages. I mean, take a look at North America. Sure, you have different languages in parts of Canada, United States, and Mexico, but it's not going to be anywhere near 200. But that is what has happened throughout the course of time over Europe and their languages. You have Romantic languages. The Romantic languages are kind of off here in Western Europe. These are Romantic languages spoken here, like Spanish. You can see Spain right here. You have French. You can see France right here. You have Italian. Those are all Romantic languages. You have the Germanic languages, which are kind of in the central to north central area. And you can see England is one of them. So English is one of those Germanic languages. And of course, German is a Germanic language. And then once you get over toward the eastern area, you have more, and that doesn't include Romania here. Toward this eastern area, you have Slavic languages like Polish and Croatian and things such as that. So you kind of have a division of languages, language types amongst those religions there in Europe. Now let's go to another place. Imperialism and World War I. Now we're really stretching back here. We haven't talked about we haven't talked about World War I in a while. But a slant that we did not take, that the standards have us taking, is the role of Asia and the role of Africa as far as World War I. Now there was really no fighting to be said in these countries, or very little fighting, but here's how they played a role. By the early 1900s, most of the world had freed itself from imperialism, except for two continents, and you can guess what they are: Africa and Asia. And you can look right here and see that you have a chart here. I've kind of flattened it out and you can't really read it very well, but you have a chart here of all the different countries and all the different shades represent a country in Europe that controlled them. And here you can see it in Asia a little bit better, what countries controlled this area right here. Even the United States had the Philippines right here, so they were even a part of it. But what happened in early 1900s was that European countries, to get way over to the southern areas of Africa and way over to Asia, really had to put more efforts into keeping these places up. And they built bigger and bigger navies to protect these places all along the globe. So when you did have the problems that started amongst the assassination of Franz Ferdinand and the alliances that we talked about, you already had these well-developed navies, and that kind of led as an incentive for these countries to maybe start war. And if they had poor military, then maybe they would have had second thoughts about it. Well, why don't you make sure that you have done the questions, and I hope you've learned a little bit about Germany, UK, Ukraine, Europe, and World War I.